we've just done the match preview for Brighton, and I thought, stuff it, I'm actually quite enjoying myself. And there was a few more bits and pieces that I wanted to get my teeth into that weren't specifically to do with the match that we're playing at the Amex on Sunday. And Duke had to obviously disappear. For anybody that was watching earlier, he had to disappear. And I think he's having a bit of fun. But I thought, do you know what? I fancy having a little bit of fun as well. I'm drinking water though, so this is about as much fun as I can have on a Friday night. I'm here on my own. My wife's out with my daughter. My son's at work. My other son's out with his bird. So I thought we'd just have a little bit of fun here. Anyway, before we get into that little bit of housekeeping, as usual, please don't forget to like, comment on, and share this stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon for alerts on new content. As always, we thank you very much indeed for your support. So what am I doing here? Well, it's Talk West Ham. So I'm going to talk about things that are out there that are connected with West Ham in one way, shape, or form. And I'd really like your involvement if via the live chat, or if you fancy coming on, and I'm being a bit brave with this, but if you fancy coming on the stream, you can actually find the link in the pinned comments. So you can actually join me in the studio and we can bat any of these conversations around as you so fit, or I'll just sit here and talk to myself. Really doesn't bother me. I'm fine. I mean, if I have a bit of company, great. If I don't, I'll just make the best of it. Anyway, there was an interesting story that I saw earlier. It was earlier this morning, and I was trying to find it before we went live with Duke on the match preview, and I couldn't find it. VAR. VAR is something that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't buy into VAR. A lot of people are just like, no, VAR is not for me. And I can understand that. You know, it's something that it seems on the face of it that VAR favors the big boys. That's the perception. But is it the reality? Because sometimes perception and reality can be two different things. And there was an article that I stumbled across this morning, in actual fact, and I'm going to share it with you. So here we go. Premier League table without VAR, where Brighton, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, and Arsenal sit after the latest results. Now, this is a website called Sussex World. I was just having a little scour around this morning for various little bits and pieces out there to do with Brighton, and this thing came up. And I thought to myself, oh, now that's interesting. I'd actually quite like to get a few people's opinions on this and see what people think. Because as I say, VAR, a lot of people are like, no, get rid of it. It's crap. It only favours the big teams, blah, blah, blah. Does it? Does it? Well, this article seems to fly in the face of that. And if you scroll down, and as I say, this is Sussex World. So this is a publication very much with leanings towards Brighton and Hove Albion. They have no real affinity to any of the top six clubs. So I'm looking at this, and I mean, you can go out there and you can just Google it. You can find it, Brighton and Hove Albion Premier League table without VAR. And it's quite interesting because with or without VAR, there's not an awful lot of difference. Not positionally anyway. Maybe the odd point here or there. But positionally, if we didn't have VAR and the referee on field, their decision stood, as opposed to go and have a look at the monitor, oh dear, I'm going to change my mind, whatever, it actually balances out for most teams quite well. Look at this. So Man City would still be top. They would be in the same position. They would have one less point. They're on 90 points at the minute, and they would have 89 if VAR were not in play. If you scroll down, you'll notice again, Liverpool are second, and they would have exactly the same amount of points as they've got now. Chelsea would be third. Tottenham would be fourth. Hang on. Where's the rest of it gone? Hang on. Next page. There you go. Right. Do excuse me. Hang on. Arsenal would be fifth. You see, there's a trend here. Manchester United would still be sixth. We would still be seventh. We would have exactly the same points if VAR didn't exist as if it does, which it obviously does. Leicester would be 8th. This is where it slightly changes, but it doesn't change massively when you look at the positions that are really up for grabs in the Premier League in terms of Europe, in terms of Premier League itself, in terms of relegation. Leicester would be 8th. Newcastle would be 9th. They would be up 3 positions. So they would actually be better off quite a bit without VAR. Wolves would be down 2 positions to 10th. Brighton would be down 1 position to 11th. Brentford would be down 1 position to 12th. These ones are sort of like the nothing, the sort of like the nothing realm, if you will. 13th would be Palace. They'd be in exactly the same position as they are now. Villa would be in the same position as they are now in 14th. Everton would actually be 1 position better off than they are currently. They would have 40 points as opposed to the 36 that they currently have. So again, not a massive difference. 16th would be Burnley. They would be up 2 positions. So they would actually be quite a bit better off. They'd be 3 points better off than they currently are. And that would more or less see them safe, I guess. And then you look at the relegation spots. 17th, well, not the relegation spots, but getting close to it. 17th, Southampton would be down 2 positions. The relegation spots would be Leeds. They'd be down 1 position. Norwich, and this was obviously wrote 2 days ago. That's why I say, when I say down 1 position, because obviously this was wrote before the Burnley game yesterday. Anyway, Leeds would be 18th. Norwich would be 19th. Watford would be 20th. So VAR in and of itself doesn't make an awful lot of difference on the face of it. Now, let's just have a look in the chat. We've got Mr. Walsh sitting there. How you doing, mate? I'm waffling away just to you and one other in the chat. I mean, on the face of it, I don't think that there's an awful lot you can really say about VAR. And we all hate it, don't we? When the referee goes over and it's like, oh Christ, he's going to give a penalty here. He's going to send a player off. We all hate it when it's against our team. When it's us that's the beneficiaries, it's like, yeah, great. We tend to forget, I think, the times that it goes for us, and we very conveniently remember the times that it goes against us. That's just life. That's just the way it is. We remember when we were kicked in the nuts as opposed to the time that we actually got a leg up out of it. To be perfectly honest, I'm of the opinion that VAR, it's here to stay. Whether you like it, whether you don't, it ain't going anywhere. Football as a sport is a sport that has had, it's the richest sport in the world, isn't it? Forget NFL, forget NBA, rugby union, any other sport you can care to name. Forget them. Football is financially the number 1 sport in the world. And up until a couple of years ago, didn't use video technology. Other sports used it. Cricket, rugby union, rugby league, tennis. Most other sports used video technology of some way, shape or form, except football. We've now embraced it, and we're 20 years behind those other sports that I've just mentioned. They've used it for 20 years. There's a generation of people that have just been brought up with video technology. They know nothing else. It's all they know. We are very recent additions to this particular party. And I think that there's that old saying, you only like change if you like the change. There it is. Remember the goal that Liverpool got a couple of years back at London Stadium, where James Milner was so far offside, he was virtually in the car park at Westfield, and the goal stood. VAR would have pulled that off immediately. The thing that I think is that there's obviously this thing about the offside. You know, you start getting the lines drawn and all that nonsense, and it frustrates the life out of everyone, myself included. But again, it's one of those things. You hate it when a goal has been chalked off for one of your forwards for being a toenail offside. But if it's a goal that's been chalked off for the opposition because your defender was the right side of the line, if you will, in terms of keeping the player offside, then you accept it and you sort of jump for joy. It's just the way it is. And it's exactly what you say, Sharky. It ain't going anywhere. There's too much money in the game of football for people to just go get rid. And exactly that, Walshy. It is going to evolve. they will, and I knew that when they brought VAR in, I turned around and said, listen, first couple of years is going to be a bedding in process. There's going to be certain things that they're going to, the first season, they're going to be really sort of refining it and fine tuning it and all the rest of it. And then the second season, they'll have ironed out a few kinks and so on, and it will keep on evolving. And obviously, there's law changes in and amongst the game of football anyway. So the laws of football today are not the laws necessarily exactly the same of football that they were when VAR came in anyway. So it's always evolving naturally anyway for that very reason. So I personally think VAR is a good thing, generally speaking. As that article says there, it hasn't made an awful lot of difference in terms of where teams would otherwise be. Yes, there's some teams that might be a point better off. There's some teams that might be a position better off. But the top 7, as I say, if we didn't have VAR, the top 7 now would still be the top 7. They might be a point better off here and there, but positionally, there's no change. There's a few around the middle bits where Leicester could be here and Wolves could be there and this, that, and the other. But the bottom 3 would be Leeds, Watford, and Norwich. So it's made no difference. It's made no difference as far as the important sections of the Premier League is concerned in terms of who's fighting it out for the Premier League, the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League. That is exactly as it is now as what it would have been without VAR. The bottom 3 is exactly the same. So there's no team that could turn around and justifiably say, yeah, but if VAR hadn't have existed, bollocks. You're exactly where you deserve to be. And it is an even playing field. I know people turn around and say it's not fair when we get a goal chalked off, but it swings and roundabouts. It really is. Sharky, in tennis, the technology takes only a few seconds. Football needs to improve VAR. That is the thing I think that frustrates people. I think in tennis, it's like a line call in tennis. They sort of like, they do the ball tracking. 20 seconds, you've got a decision. Ball was out, carry on. Ball was in, points given, whatever. That is the thing I think that frustrates people, is the amount of time it takes to make a decision. Personally, I think there should be a time limit. That's one little tweak that I would possibly advocate in the implementation of VAR. I think I probably would turn around and say, you need to have a look, fine, but you have, whether it's 60 seconds, 90 seconds, I don't know. Let's say 60 seconds. Just pluck a figure out of the air. Let's say that the powers that be, IFAB, turn around and say, right, you've got 60 seconds to look at the video evidence. And if you cannot, within 60 seconds, find anything that can categorically contradict the on-field official's decision, then the on-field decision must stand. And that's it. I think 60 seconds, I think people would swallow. I think when it starts getting into 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, the lines are being drawn, is he an armpit offside and all that shit? I think that's what really pisses people off, especially the people in the ground. And I've been there. I've been there at London Stadium when it's like, come on, let's just get on with it, for Christ's sake. It's time it takes, which is annoying, especially if you're in the stadium. Exactly that, Walshy. Exactly that. And you've been exactly the same as me, where you're sitting there just going, get on with it, for Christ's sake. I want to get, I've come here for the entertainment. Cyber's in there. Hello, mate. Duke is probably getting pissed as we speak. In fact, I think he was halfway there when we did our match preview. In fact, his mum came in at one point. It was quite funny. Fans should run the VAR. Do you know something? Now, here's something that I've heard people say. Ex-players should be in the VAR. Now, that's a very nice idea. That's a really good idea in theory. Here's where it falls down. Can you honestly see Mark Noble, retired next season, stepping into the VAR booth and getting paid what the VAR guy gets paid, which probably isn't, compared to a Premier League footballer anyway, a great deal of money? Can you honestly see an ex-player stepping into the booth? Everybody turns around and says, the referees have never played the game, and that's true. But you're not going to get someone that's on 50, 80, 100, 200 grand a week salary, ending their career and stepping into a video booth and doing it for, I don't know, what do they get paid? 80 grand a year, something like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's good money. That's good money for the likes of you and me. But for a Premier League footballer, that's a hell of a come down. And I can't see that would happen. Good idea in theory, falls apart in practice. It's not going to happen. I'd happily do it for our games, Andy. Yeah. I couldn't make a worse job of it. Apparently, Areola wants to sign. We're going to get onto that, Cyber. We are going to get onto that. I just wanted to do this little bit about V.A.R. because I thought it was an interesting article that I saw this morning. Done deal. You and me, totally unbiased. Do it. They couldn't afford you, though, could they, Walshy? How many points are we winning the Premier League by? They're just having a little back and forth. Carlton Cole and Talksport, a bit the legend. Okay, fair enough. 35, 40 points clear. Mike's up the ref. Right, okay, so that's that bit. As I say, VAR's going nowhere, guys. And VAR fundamentally hasn't made as much of a difference to the standing in the Premier League as some people would have you believe. Maybe, like I say, points here, points there, positionally, and in terms of the important positions, so top 7, bottom 3, no difference whatsoever. The teams that are down the bottom are there because they're crap, not because of VAR, not because of any other reason, because they ain't good enough after 37 games thus far of a Premier League season. That is the reason they're there. And the reason that the teams at the top 7 positions are there is because they are the cream of the crop and they rise to the top. VAR or not. Anyway, next little bit I'm going to bring to you. I'm going to use the One Football website. And again, I just want your take on any of these that we do together. West Ham, it says there, GSBK, because they've obviously got Kretinsky in there. So it's no longer just GSB. Could make a smart move with a 20 million star at London Stadium. Tell me your thoughts on this, guys. It says West Ham could pull off a real smart move, quotes unquotes, by bringing Watford forward Emmanuel Dennis to the club. The Hammers have been linked to the highly rated 24-year-old as manager David Moyes looks to finally address the lack of options at his disposal in the final third of the pitch. According to the Mirror, make of that what you will, West Ham are plotting a £20 million swoop for Dennis when the market reopens for business next month. It's claimed that the capital club's hierarchy, GSBK, are keen to back Moyes financially. That's nice of them. After another successful season under the Scottish tactician's tutelage. And Dennis is likely to be available after catching the eye at Vicarage Road, while his current employers are set to compete in the Championship next term following their relegation from the top flight. Now this is a guy I'm actually a bit of a fan of. I think he's done really well at a team that, let's be honest, have pulled up, well, probably a handful of daisies. They certainly haven't pulled up any trees. They've been pretty poor. Emmanuel Dennis, last I looked, he'd played 31 Premier League games. I think he's played a couple of games more since then. But he played 31 Premier League games up to a couple of weeks ago. 10 goals, 6 assists, I think was the statistic in a struggling team. So he had, at that point, a goal involvement every other game in a crap team. Now, the one thing that does concern me, well, there's 2 things, but one's a given. I'll explain. Not sure on Dennis, Sharky. Yeah, and I'm guessing that probably the reason you're not sure on him is the same reason that I do have an element of doubt with him. I think he's a good player. He's proven, obviously, in the Premier League he can do a job in a crap team. What could he do in a team that's not so crap? But I do hear whispers that he got a little bit of a perceived attitude problem. Not too sure I want any bad apples in the team, but I'm old enough to remember another guy who had a perceived bad attitude, and his name was Paolo Di Canio. He didn't do too bad for us. He did all right. I think if you've got a player that's got a certain attitude, a certain just a certain mentality. But if you can get a manager that can harness the talent and get him on side and get him to your way of thinking, that's a good thing to have. Let me know what you think. I mean, I think he's a someone we should have on the radar. I think he fits with the style of striker that probably David Moyes is after. He's quite mobile, he's strong, and as I say, he can score goals. I think he's someone we should have on the wish list. Not saying necessarily get him in at all costs. I think that there is another striker, and I will bring this one to you in a minute. But I do certainly think that Emmanuel Dennis would be someone that I would be looking to get in on the wish list anyway. Have a look and see what you think. But let me know what you think, guys. Cybers said about V.A.R kicking someone yesterday. Right. Okay. I'll tell you what. You've dropped that one in, Cyber. I'll give you my 2 penneth on it. I cannot excuse. Let me rephrase that. I'm not condoning what Patrick Vieira did, but I can understand it. If you listen to Talk Sport this morning, I listened to it on the way to my first job this morning, and they were talking to Neil Warnock, and he recollected something that happened to him. And we've all got our thoughts on Neil Warnock, but just bear with me. He was the manager of, I think it was when he was manager of Palace, I think he said. And they got to the championship playoff final and were beat by Bristol City, I think he said. And basically all the fans ran on, and he had 2 bodyguards either side of him, and he was getting sort of like people trying to punch him and all the rest of it. And the bodyguards were sort of taking most of the blows, but he got a few whacks along the way. And he turned around and said it's the one and only time in his career that he's actually been frightened. So there's Patrick Vieira, and he's a big lad, don't get me wrong. I'm sure he can look after himself, but he's got all these Everton fans jumping up and down, and he's got one particularly in his face that's giving him a hard time, and you don't know what was said. That's another thing. We've only got the video footage. We don't know anything that's been said. And Patrick Vieira, he's entitled to be there. Patrick Vieira is entitled to be on that field of play. That supporter isn't. That supporter's not. There is a law that says that anyone that goes on the pitch, they're committing a criminal offence. Now, realistically, I know that when it's a big moment in a club and it's joyous and everyone's in party mode and they're going on, and so long as it's that, yes, it might be a criminal offence, but you've got to be a little bit pragmatic and all the rest of it. And so long as it doesn't cross the line, you kind of go, yeah, whatever. I mean, I remember back in the old days at Upton Park, last home game of the season, it used to be everybody used to pile up to the pitch. I mean, I remember, what was it, 92, 93, the game against Cambridge, everyone flooded on. It was a regular thing. There was never really any problems that I'm aware of. It just seems to be lately, though, that there's a lot of things going on. There was obviously this thing with Patrick Vieira, the Billy Sharp one the other day. Fundamentally, the players, the managers, the coaching staff, they are entitled to be on that pitch. Anybody else isn't. Now, if someone's there and, like I say, they're just having a celebrate, I can kind of maybe sort of go, okay, fine. If they're coming on to nut a player, if they're coming on to verbally abuse a manager, quite frankly, they shouldn't be there. And there's a little part of me that thinks, do you know what? If you get a right-hander, you kind of brought it on yourself. You shouldn't have been there in the first place. Patrick Vieira will probably get the old Bill tapping him on the shoulder and pulling him in for questioning. I'm fairly convinced that they will. But whether they should, I'm not so sure. I think there's a lot of people that if Patrick Vieira gave him a right-hander would probably turn around and go, good on you, mate. And I'd like to also turn around and say that not all Everton fans are like the guy that confronted Patrick Vieira. Let's get this one out there, because if you watch the video again, you'll see that there's a collection of Everton fans that can see what's going on, and they're like, and they take and usher Patrick Vieira out of the way. Those fans, fair play to you. Fair play to you. What we got here? Cyber. What about Ngakia? Anyone want him back? No, we don't need a right back. why do we need a right back that when we was in the shit, which we were at the time, he just sort of went, I'm on my way, which he was entitled to do. But I'm a big believer in never go back. There are exceptions to that rule, but I generally believe never go back. He left for a reason. Let him crack on. I hope he's happy at Watford, having another relegation. Crack on with that, mate. We don't need a right back. We don't need a right back that thinks that he's better than the club and that he can play at a club that's much better than West Ham, and he goes to Watford. Whatever. Yeah, don't really blame him either. Just going to go through some of these comments. If there's anything you guys want to have a chat about, as I say, I just wanted to do this just to pass the time. I didn't have any script. I'm doing this completely off the cuff. So if there's any subjects you want to discuss, get them in the chat and we'll see what we can do. The only player I would take would be Oxford. Do you know what? Duke would agree with you on that. I'll be honest, I've not seen anything of Reece Oxford since he's gone to the Bundesliga. Duke, however, has seen quite a bit. Duke is very knowledgeable when it comes to Austrian and German Bundesliga because his dad was born in Germany. So he's got German heritage and all the rest of it. So he does take a great interest in the German Bundesliga and also the Austrian Bundesliga. And he turns around and says, Oxford, he'd take him back on the basis of his performances for Augsburg. I don't believe he can play as a lone centre forward for us. We need someone like Watkins or Nunez. I'm guessing you're talking about Emmanuel Dennis there. I don't know. I think he could. Like I say, I think that stylistically, he's fairly similar to Antonio. It may well be that you're right that he hasn't maybe been deployed in that role as regularly as Antonio was. But don't forget, there was once upon a time Antonio played on the wing. And then one day David Moyes had the idea, I'm going to play you as a lone striker and see how we go. Until you try, you don't know. That's the way I look at it. Yes, it did happen to Swindon. Do you know something? We're getting a lot of pitch invasions, aren't we? And a lot of people are getting those sort of smoke bombs and flares into stadiums. I don't get it. I don't get why it's happening just all of a sudden. I blame Will Smith. He started it. Kieran, I'll tell you, listen. Let me just bring this to your attention, Kieran. I don't know if you've clocked it, but if you want to join me, as it says on that banner there, you'll find the link in the pinned comments. So if you want to jump on and have a little chit chat with me, mate, you're more than welcome. As indeed is any of you guys watching. It's a bit risky because I could have someone that comes on that I don't know and comes on and says, you're a prick and buggers off, which actually is probably true. I'm probably not going to argue with them. I am a prick, but I'm a friendly prick. Not all Everton fans are rotten, just 97% of them. Walshy. I've got no real problem with Everton. I actually would have been quite sad to see them go down because Mark Ward, who Duke and I saw last Friday, he turned around and he said, just think about it from my point of view. This season, Everton could get relegated. Obviously, this was before yesterday's result, which saw them safe. But he said Everton could get relegated and Liverpool could do the quadruple. He went, no. I mean, poor old Wardy. I did feel sorry for him. But luckily, it's not going to happen as far as Everton's relegation are concerned. And they're a good old-fashioned club. They've got good support. I don't think I'd have liked to have seen them go down. But at the end of the day, if they'd have finished in the bottom three, they would have been there because they deserve to be in the bottom three. No ifs, no buts. The table doesn't lie after 38 games. Do I think Spurs will get that last top four spot? Now, there's this story about food poisoning again. How can the same thing happen? I mean, I haven't heard too much more about it than that, but there's a load of stuff I've seen swirling around on the internet about food poisoning this and Kane is puking his guts up or whatever. Again? Same as 2006? How could a team be that unlucky in the same situation, having exactly the same thing going against them, and with the same team that they're vying with? Conspiracy theory, anyone? Arsene Wenger's been at it with the lasagna again? I don't know. Do I think Spurs will get the last top 4 spot? Yeah, I do. I do. I don't know. Like I say, does this thing about possible food poisoning? Yeah, exactly that, Sharky. Lasagna again. Does that change things? Well, I guess if you've got Harry Kane sitting on the bog between now and kickoff, that's not ideal prep. If you've got Son that's spewing his guts up, if you've got Hugo Lloris that's sort of like in bed with a jippy tummy, it's not great. It's certainly going to give Arsenal an advantage, but Tottenham are in the box seat. They've got the momentum. Arsenal's momentum seems to have hit the buffers a little bit. I would make Tottenham favourites. I would make Tottenham favourites for top 4. Do I want them to finish top 4? No. But do I particularly want Arsenal to finish top 4? I've probably got more of a soft spot for Arsenal than I have for Tottenham, for the simple fact my late grandfather was an Arsenal fan. I know that my wife is a Tottenham fan, and I love her dearly, the present Mrs. Gates. But I'm a West Ham fan, so I can't really turn around and go, I hope Tottenham get Champions League. I can't say those words and it actually be something that I fundamentally mean. So listen, whoever finishes in fourth finishes fourth on their merits over the 38 game season. If it's Arsenal, if it's Spurs, may the best team win. Doesn't affect us. Couldn't really care less. All Spurs players were wearing nappies on Sunday. Quite possibly. Anyway, what else do I want to bring you? Here we go. And I think Cyber mentioned this a little bit earlier. The story is we are set to seal our first summer signing with a 10 million deal in place. Who is it for? Well, you've probably already worked it out from that photograph. Yep, it's Alphonse Areola. This is according to Italian transfer journalist Gianluca Di Marzio. Did I do that well? He claims that the 29-year-old has agreed to remain at West Ham despite being backup for Fabianski this season. The Daily Mail reports that West Ham have a £10 million clause in Areola's loan deal, and Di Marzio states that the deal will be activated. The Frenchman joined West Ham on a loan-to-buy deal from Paris Saint-Germain last summer. He's since clocked up 18 appearances, conceding just 15 goals and keeping 8 clean sheets. I would argue that is very, very respectable. Alphonse Areola is set to stay. He says, Di Marzio states that West Ham are convinced, quotes unquotes, by Areola, and therefore the Frenchman could be given the chance to challenge for the number 1 shirt next season. I would go a stage further. I don't think that Alphonse Areola will sign unless he is given certain assurances about his playing time. I think if he puts pen to paper, he only does it if he has been given the nod from David Moyes to say, am I going to be your Premier League number 1? Listen, playing in the FA Cup, playing in the League Cup, playing in Europe, that's great. But if you go out at the first stage, I mean, he's played 18 games. Most of that has probably been in the Europa League, hasn't it? So if Fabianski was still the number 1 next season and Areola was still the backup, only next season we played the 2 playoff games in the Conference League. Let's assume we finished 7th. Let's assume the worst, hope for the best. We played the 2 playoff games for the conference and Astragugu happens and we're out. That's us done in Europe. We play in the first round of or I think second or third round that we would go into. Third round, I think, of the League Cup, because the European teams get a bye, don't they? So we would play in the third round of the League Cup. Let's say we get beat there because we get drawn away at Man City. Who knows? And then we get drawn away at Liverpool in the third round of the FA Cup. So Areola, if he signed on that basis, might only play 4 games. And then he's waiting to see what happens in the Premier League. I don't think that he's going to sign unless he's been given the nod that he's going to be the number one. Which is, Fabianski would then be essentially what Areola's been this season, the cup goalkeeper. I'm surprised he hasn't started more. I do wonder whether, when we did the preview a couple of hours ago, and I did my starting 11, and I put Fabianski in goal, and Duke was countering. He thinks that it will be Areola. And do you know what? Since we've had that discussion, the more I'm sort of sitting here and thinking about it, the more I'm thinking he might have a point. He might have a point. Is it true that Moyes is stepping down? The paper's going to take the job. Oh, Cyber, you didn't fall for that, did you? Oh, you didn't fall for that. Oh, I had that message sent to me yesterday, actually. And Walshy, because Walshy, you're on the Hammers Chat Patreon WhatsApp, aren't you? I sent that to the group yesterday. Please tell me you didn't fall for that, Cyber. Please tell me you didn't fall for that, because the last paragraph, if you read all of it, says that Frank Lampard is coming in as our manager, and he's spoken with Paul Ince and Jermaine Defoe about becoming assistant manager and first team coach. And it says that there's been no communication from the East London outfit, but 10 men in a forklift were spotted entering the club's Rush Green training ground this evening. So, in answer to the question, is it true? No. No, it's not. No, it's not. Walshy's agreeing with Sharky. Anyway, let me have a let's you can direct me. What do you want to talk about? Have a look here. This is hang on. There it is. Right. You can have a look at this. Where do you want me to go with this, guys? Put it in the live chat. What story do you want to get your teeth into? McAvenny is gutted at Yarmolenko leaving. I can't understand that. He's not really done anything. Oh, this is the one. Have you seen this one? West Ham make a cash offer for Sparta Prague centre forward Adam HLOžEK. Now, he's obviously been linked with us for quite some time. Now, he has 12 appearances for the Czech Republic senior team, and in the Czech First Division, he is the joint top scorer this season, despite the fact that he missed 4 months of the season. That's crazy. Absolutely nuts. He's 19 years of age. He's missed 4 months of the season, and he still managed to be joint top scorer of the Czech First League. He's got 15 goals. That is absolutely mental. He has a contract with Sparta Prague for another 2 years as of the summer. But, mate, I'd be all over that. I would be all over that. HLOžEK could be worth a loan or a cheap punt. Does the fact that we're connected to Sparta Prague for some reason, I keep calling him Alex Kretinsky. I don't know why. I know it's Daniel Kretinsky. I keep calling him Alex. Ridiculous. Does that fact that we've obviously got that connection, that Daniel Kretinsky is the president of Sparta Prague, and he's also the second highest shareholder at West Ham. Does that help or does that hinder that deal? I would suggest it helps, but it's a little bit. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it looks. He looks very green. Listen, that may well be the case, but if you've missed 4 months of your league season and you've still managed to finish the league's joint top goal scorer at 19 years of age, I would suggest you've got some potential. What if he's like Crow, who doesn't get a game? I see what you're saying. Crow's a weird one, because Crow we were chasing for some time, if you believe what was put out there, that his name kept popping up. But he obviously hasn't shown enough to David Moyes in training. He can't have done. He's had a year and he's had 6 appearances in all competitions. We got to the semi-finals of European competition. We got to the quarterfinals of the League Cup and the fifth round of the FA Cup, and played 38 games in the Premier League. And this guy played 6 times. He must have been dog shit in training. Absolute dog shit. Is Krasinski money going to be available? That is the thing that does concern me, because obviously I've probably heard the same stories that you've heard, Sharky, that a lot of his investments are tied up in Russia. And we all know what's going on with Russia at the minute. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's typical West Ham, isn't it? I mean, we got taken over by the Icelandics, and everybody thought, brilliant. It's all going to be the land of milk and honey, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And what happened? The arse fell out of the banking sector in Iceland, and that was it. There was a financial Armageddon. What can you do? Even Vlasic better. How do you mean, Cyber? I don't understand. Might be me, but what's the point you're trying to articulate, mate? Yeah, I mean, listen, we need to strengthen. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys listened to David Moyes' press conference that he did before the Brighton game, and he admitted that he wanted to add to the group, but he wouldn't be drawn on, because he actually got asked what I think it was words to the effect of basically, what positions are you looking to strengthen in, and he wouldn't reveal his hand. He's not going to go out there and go, well, we need a goalkeeper and we need a left back, and we all know where he needs to strengthen. You know, we've known for the last 18 months that he needs a striker. But and that's the funny thing, isn't it? Because I think this time last year we was all turning around and going, David Moyes needs to get a striker, and he didn't. And we said it in January, and he didn't. And we was all sitting here and going, we're playing European competition. Antonio's being flown back and forth to Jamaica. We know he's got dodgy hamstrings. This is all going to go tits up. And it didn't. It hasn't. I mean, he hasn't had basically any time out injured, has he? I think he might have had 1 or 2 games out from my recollection. But he hasn't had like what he's normally had in previous seasons. So I don't know whether it was a change in diet. I don't know if it was a change in his training regime, what it was, because I felt absolutely convinced with all that extra football and the back and forth across to the Caribbean, mate, that's a recipe for disaster. But be that as it may, despite the fact we've got away with it this season on that front, I think that there's only so many. It's a game of Russian roulette, you know. There's only so many times you can load that chamber, and at some point the gun's going to go off. He will get an injury, and all right, you know, I know that he would turn around and probably between his closest confidants turn around and go, "It's okay, we can put Jared Bowen up front," which we all know. But what if Jared Bowen gets an injury, or what if Jared Bowen's form tails off? I mean, touch wood, it doesn't, but these things do happen. Daniel's in the energy market in Eastern Europe. Yeah, well, I think he's got his fingers in a lot of pies, Walshy. I think, isn't he got something to do with Royal Mail and Sainsbury's and various other companies? But yeah, a lot of his money is tied up in the energy market in Eastern Europe. Would I take Moise Kean? What I've seen of Moise Kean is probably more at Everton, and I wasn't impressed with him there, Cyber. I really wasn't. Now, maybe his game's developed since, because I think, did he go to Juventus? Did I get that right? Maybe he's a player that's developed, and he maybe is going to be one of these players that comes back stronger. I don't know. Would I take him? It's one of those. Listen, if David Moyes thinks that he's the guy that's going to fit in the jigsaw of West Ham, then he knows more about football coaching than I do. He's been doing the job a very long time. And let's look at it. He saved us from relegation twice. He got us 6th last season. He's got us at least 7th this season and a European semi-final to boot. I think we have to turn around and say, we'll take your judgment on that. Listen, he will make bum signings. Anyone that turns around and expects David Moyes not to make the occasional crap signing is totally delusional. I mean, even the best will sign the occasional dud. Sir Alex Ferguson, probably the greatest club manager that I've seen over a sustained period of time. I mean, he created so many teams. He'd reinvent Manchester United multiple times during his tenure. But he signed Eric Jemba. He signed Gabriel Obertan. He signed Kleberson. He signed Massimo Taibbi. Do you remember them? They were all dog shit. Dog shit. Should never have been in the Premier League, let alone playing for a team like Manchester United at that level at the time. So that doesn't mean to say that David Moyes will get every signing right. Vlasic and Krau being two cases in point. But I think that you have to sort of look at what he's got to work with, what he's achieved, what he's hoping to achieve going forwards, what he's competing against. What's your expectation? I mean, for me, listen, the top 6 generally takes care of itself because that's where the money is. And next season, you've got Newcastle. So next season, probably 8th is everybody else's Premier League title. I don't like that fact, but there it is. They've got all the money, so they can go out and spend money that the likes of us, the likes of Wolves, the likes of Leicester, the likes of all the other teams just simply can't. We just can't. They're playing chess and we're playing drafts. It's as simple as that. What else we got? Moyes playing his cards close to his chest, as he should. As he should. You don't play a game of poker with your cards face up. You play it with your cards face down and you keep a poker face. Yeah. Two games I think he's missed. Not too many. Sonny Perkins. Now, I would loan out. If I had anything to do with it, I would loan him out to a club as high up the pyramid as it's possible to get him playing men's football, get him getting kicked up in the air. There's only so much you can learn at under 23s football. There comes a point at which you've got to go out, you've got to branch out, and you've got to be tested. And you've got to be tested against men, seasoned professionals that are going to take you to places you don't want to go. They're going to ask you questions and you better bloody have the answer. And it's sink or swim. I would get him out there, loan him out, get him playing, hopefully Championship, but if it needs to be League One, so be it. But we need to do our due diligence. It's no good us doing like what we did with Connor Coventry when he went to Peterborough, where it didn't work out. And anyone that you speak to that knows their stuff, I mean, Gio on Hammers Chat, for example, turned around and said, just it was never going to work because fundamentally he was a square peg in a round hole. It was just never the fit. It wasn't there. And he went to Milton Keynes Dons, wasn't it? And he's all right. He's gone down a league, but he's playing. I think I would rather have a player out there playing at League One level, but playing regular first team football, than a player playing a rung up the ladder, but playing basically no time at all. Our signings this season have been underwhelming. Yeah, they have. I can't lie. I mean, we didn't sign anyone in January. Who did we sign in the summer transfer window? Krau, Vlasic. It's probably unfair to do that, isn't it? I mean, at the minute, I'm sort of like I'm not too sure, but it's kind of like Ben Rama in that last season I sort of said, look, Ben Rama's got to have a pre-season and then we'll see how he's gone this season. Now, Ben Rama, I think the jury's still out on him. I don't think he's proven to everyone that he is Premier League quality. I personally think he is a very good player, but I can understand why people get the ump with him. The stats do say that he scored 8 goals, is it? And got however many assists. You look at it, I mean, if you just look at it on stats, he's done actually all right, Ben Rama. But I can understand why people look at him during a game and see him not going in for challenges and backing out and just not doing what other players like Pablo Fornals do. So I can understand why people look at him and go, "You're not for me." Um, I think I like Benny. I like Benny, and I want him to come good. I want him to be able to prove that he is a Premier League player and get the people that are non-believers right now to become believers during the course of next season. The only thing is, I'm not actually convinced he will be here next season. And there is a part of me that says, if we could get our money back, would I sell him? I'd have to think about it. Is it like Meepo? Yeah, I mean, he's not really done too much on his loan, has he? I mean, it's not really worked for him. Again, we need to do our due diligence. I do think that we're not very good at it. Has Duke got his penny shirt yet? Well, I think, has he got 2 more goals and he'll get 10 for the season? So might have to. Squad needs it. Listen, Sharky, squad always needs improving. We could win the Premier League. We could win the European Cup. We could win the European Super Cup, the World Club Championship. And I would still say that the squad needs improving. You never stand still. If you stand still, you're actually going backwards. So you've always got to evolve. You've always got to improve. Whatever, like I say, you look at Barcelona under Pep, they won 6 trophies one season, didn't they? They won La Liga, they won the European Cup, they won the Copa del Rey, on and on and on. I think they won 6 trophies in a year. Did he go out the following season and go, I'm not going to sign anyone? No, of course he did what he thought he needed to do to improve it. Whether he did, you could argue that, but you always need to tinker with it. You always need to try and refine things and plug little gaps that you see as and when you come. Can't tell me HLOžEK could do less than Vlasic. Yeah, I agree, Troj. I think that Vlasic, like I say, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in that I think he needs a full preseason, and I think he needs to be given games in his favoured position. I don't think putting him on the left is really doing him justice. I think if you put a square peg into a round hole, don't complain about the result. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's one of those where, and here's the thing, a lot of people will have you believe that Nikola Vlasic was a 28, 30 million pound player, whatever. He isn't. I have it on a very good authority. He is not. He is 17 million pounds. That's the fee that's been agreed right now. There is another 10 million approximately that is based on add-ons and bonuses, depending upon him getting top goal scorer, depending on West Ham qualifying for Europe, winning the Premier League, winning the European Cup, whatever the clauses may be. There's another 10 million pounds that could be paid, but they might not. So the extra 10 millions are sort of variable. 17 million is the figure. Bang. That's a definite. Now, has he shown that he's even a 17 million pound player? No. I can't justify that. But in fairness to him, he's played an awful lot of his football on the left. And a lot of the time he's coming on for sort of games here, last 10 minutes here or whatever. So it's kind of difficult to judge him on that. I'm willing to give him next season and judge him on that. But if we got an offer in the summer that gave us our money back, I think I'd probably take it. I wouldn't be sort of like crying if he left. I really wouldn't. Let's have a little wee look. Don't know, mate. As far as that's concerned, it depends because I'm out tomorrow. I'm going to watch Harlequins versus Gloucester at Twickenham, so it depends upon what condition I'm in on Sunday. Lingard, yes, Jesse Lingard. Now, I feel there's a part of me that feels sorry for Jesse Lingard because he's wasted a year of his career essentially, and for what? I can understand it to a point because he's a Manchester United fan. He's come through from their academy, yada yada yada, and he has a loan spell at West Ham where he does really well. Scores goals, gets assists. We qualify for Europe. Fantastic. At the point that he's got that decision to make, do I go to West Ham? Do I stay? Do I do this? Do I do that? His hero walks through the door, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, he might not be your hero. He might not be my hero, but he's Jesse Lingard's hero. He walks through the door and he thinks, wow, I've got the opportunity of working alongside my hero in what is currently the last year of my contract at my boyhood club. What an opportunity. I can understand him taking that opportunity. I really can. Now, it hasn't worked out. With the benefit of hindsight, we can all sit here and go, well, that worked well, Jesse, didn't it? Should have come to West Ham. No, never mind. Listen, I don't blame him. I really don't. But it hasn't worked out. I do actually think it was really shitty of Manchester United that in their last home game of the Premier League at Old Trafford, they're bringing off, I think it was Juan Mata came off. He came off substituted. Nemanja Matic came off as a sub. They both got applauded off by the Old Trafford faithful. And I'm sitting there going, what about Jesse Lingard? What, this is someone that you've brought through your academy. He scored you the winning goal in an FA Cup final. I think he also scored in a League Cup final, if I remember. He's one of your own, as the song goes. Nothing. I thought that was really shitty. And say what you want about Manchester United and their supporters. I thought that they would have a little bit more class than that for a player that has come through their ranks and has actually been really loyal. How you doing, Richard? Hope you are well. But yeah, I would take Lingard in a heartbeat. And I know that this is a Lingard that's a year and a half older than when he first walked through the door. But I think he's still got it. We could sign him for free, a 3-year contract. And so long as the deal is right in financial terms and it makes sense for us, and obviously it would have to make sense for Lingard, otherwise he doesn't put pen to paper. But listen, if he could come in and from midfield in a 38-game Premier League season, contribute 10 goals, 12 goals, and chuck a couple of assists in as well for good measure, that's huge. That makes a massive difference. What would have happened this season? Because let's be honest about it. Bowen's got the goals. Antonio did get the goals at the beginning of the season, but it tailed off towards the end. Benrahma's obviously got a few here and there, but he's been quite streaky. He had a bit at the beginning of the season. Then he had a streak of nothing. Then before he went to the AFCON, he scored a few. Then nothing. He scored a few towards the end of the season. We've had a couple of goals here and there chipping in from various other people. But if you could have put Jesse Lingard into this team this season, into this squad, and like I say, if he could have replicated something like his form last season or the half of the season that he was with us for the entirety of this, I think we would be 5th. I don't think that's. I think we'd certainly be further up the table. There's certain games that we would have drawn, that otherwise lost this season, or one that we drew this season. Do you know what I mean? He would have been a difference maker. He would have been a game changer. How is the Areola deal going? We've actually already covered that, but the story says that it looks like there's a £10 million deal that's already in place. It looks like he's going to sign. I think that's a good move. I think that's a good move. I think he's a quality goalkeeper. He's had a season to bed in. He's got to know the players. The players have got to know him. David Moyes has obviously seen all of this, and he obviously can see that he's gelled well with the group. If he didn't, then I don't think he'd be sort of like saying, "Listen, mate, you don't. The players don't like you. You don't like the players. You're a bad apple, and you can fuck off back to the other side of the English Channel." Obviously, that hasn't happened. So, and as for your next question, and I've not seen you before, but thanks for coming along. Football memes of the month. Bit of a mouthful. I'm just going to call you memes. What striker would you sign realistically? Again, we've covered this earlier, but I've suggested Emmanuel Dennis from Watford. Adam HLOžEK's name has cropped up again. Who else? I mean, again, realistically, I mean, I could turn around and be really stupid and go, "Oh, let's get Robert Lewandowski." He's in the last year of his contract at Bayern, but realistically, it's not going to happen. Do you know what? Like I say, I still would go Dennis. I think, like I say, you look at a player that's got that amount of goals and assists in a team that didn't really do anything all season. I think if you could get Emmanuel Dennis, if you could get Jesse Lingard, I think you've probably added. I'd say you've at least added 20 goals. I think you've added 20 goals minimum, let alone the assists that they bring. Rob, hope you're well, mate. In my opinion, for what it's worth, it's always worth a good amount, mate. Don't worry about that. I think we need 3 quality permanent signings, 3 free transfers, and 3 loan players with or without an option to buy, and bring a couple of academy players through. The academy players, I'll tell you what, that has been one particular stick that I can legitimately beat Moyes around the head with. I was at the Norwich game at Carrow Road 2 weeks ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't any under 23 player on the bench, and that was a game that we ended up winning 4-0. To me, I just look at it and think, now look, Mark Noble came on. He got his 548th appearance, I think it was at the time, which drew him level with Jimmy Ruffle in the all-time pecking order. Great, fine, no problem. But fundamentally, Mark Noble's time is done. And I love Mark Noble. This is not me bashing Mark Noble, please. I'm not bashing Mark Noble, but hear me out. Mark Noble is coming to the end of his West Ham career. Does he really need that appearance? Probably not. In a game we were winning 4-0, I think it was 3-0 when he came on, but 3-0, 4-0. Would it not have benefited more to bring on a Harrison Ashby, to bring on an Aji Alese, to bring on a Sonny Perkins for the last 15 minutes of a Premier League game that you've already won? It doesn't matter. It's a free hit. It's a little bit of experience. That 15 minutes would mean more to them than it would do to Mark Noble. And as I say that with all the love and respect to Mark Noble in the world. But I agree with you, Rob. On that, I am going to end things. I have now got to disappear because there is somebody at the door, as someone once said. Guys, as I say, this was just an impromptu little thing. I just thought, do you know what? There's a few little things I'm just going to bat around. I'm going to do something completely off the cuff. Why not? Guys, please, as always, don't forget to like, comment on, and share the stream. subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell icon for alerts on new content. As always, guys, we thank you very much indeed for your support. I thank you very much for your company. And only one thing left to say, as I always do. Come on, you Irons.